So, and I'm gonna give you a hat tip on this one. So I first was approached about Pete in December 2016. It was right after the, obviously when Trump won, and I can't speak for anyone else in this room, but I was pretty surprised by that outcome. And it was sort of a dispiriting outcome. You're like, how the heck can this guy win?
Sort of. It was a dispiriting.
Yeah.
It's still dispiriting.
Yeah.
I'm dispirited.
And I'd worked for a guy who was going to run for DNC chair and said, well, I'm not going to run, but I'm going to back this other guy, and you got to look him up. And I see the name, I'm like, that is a tough name, you know. And that was my first response back. And then I Googled him, and I was like, and I started watching the videos, and this is where I'm going to give you the hat tip. And because if you remember, right after the November 2016 election, there was this theory that we had been too nice to Donald Trump in 2016, and that the only way to beat him was by going down to his level. So when he goes low, we kick him in the face, you know? And people literally said that. But, you know, and I mean, I had some skepticism about that, because that guy lives in the sewer, right? And if you go down there, you're not gonna be coming back up. And I watched these, and this guy, he looked different, he sounded different, he had a different bio, and was so rooted in his values, that it was so impressive to me. And, you know, I always say that, that it's like, imagine if you'd gone your entire life just like listening to Guns N' Roses, right? Or whatever it is. I use that because I'm sad. I'm like a big GNR fan. But, and then it's like the first time you hear Radiohead, it is so completely different, but you're like, what is this? Oh, it's actually really good. And that was what it was like at that moment. Because it was so against the grain. And I think it was a challenge we faced early on. Was that he was so stylistically different from other people and so serious, and people were like, oh, you need to be a punter, you need to be a performer. And in, you know, some of your interviews that I've seen where you've been talking about this, you've said that, you know, and I know that, you know, you're not a supporter of any candidate in this race, but that he is so completely different from Donald Trump, and that people like the opposite. And I think that is really important and was really underestimated. Generally underestimated in politics, that sometimes it's okay to be that way, but it was underestimated about him and his skills.
Well, it's also right after we have somebody to compare him to, like Donald Trump. I mean, we're dehydrated for regular conversation and complete sentences. So anything is really a breath of fresh air, you know, at this point.
Right.
So I support all candidates that are not Donald Trump, right, is how I would frame it.